Sorry, actually, the problem was I didn't go live and I was teaching it and I forgot about it. I've already taught. But anyway, I'll begin once again. Uh, I actually explained quite of thing, but now I saw that I was not live. I was only live in OBS studio, not in YouTube. So sorry for that. And I'm going to start once again. So, good morning, everyone. And today we are going to continue our discussion on literary criticism and literary theory. And today is a special class that requested by Priya, that she has some presentation that she has to do in the college, and for that we just coming to the section number 18, which is psychoanalytic criticism, where we'll talk about psychoanalytic literary criticism. We'll talk about Freud, Jung, Lacan, Guattari, Gilles Deleuze, Eric Fromm, Karen Horney. So all these are important theorists and critics in the field of psychoanalytic criticism. So I hope everyone is excited about it. Again, when the word comes psychoanalytic, what do you think it will be about? So simple in term, if you can say, it is about unconscious, it is about mental disorder, it is about brain, it is about subconscious, unconscious, it will be about identity, it will be about your what can I say? All id, ego, id. I mean id, super ego. There will be. We'll talk about other things. Anyway, we'll just begin the class quickly. So as I told you, what words? So let's have a little bit brainstorming right now. So it will set the mood of the class. Tell me, psycho. When it comes psychoanalytic, what word come in your mind? Words come in your mind. Quickly write it. Like in my when I think about psychoanalytic or psycho, it is about brain. It will be about, as I said, self. It will be about consciousness. It will be about subconsciousness. So write also your own word in the chat box quickly, and then we'll just start the class. Anyway, you do meanwhile, if you are there. Otherwise, we'll just begin. Again, psychoanalytic is what we interpret text, okay, and we adapt the method of reading developed by Freud and later theorists. And as we know, Sigmund Freud is Austrian and he's the father of psychoanalysis. Got it? And it is kind of a literary work, manifests the author, Neurosis. So it is about, if we are talking about psychoanalysis, we talk about what is the intention of the work by author, what was there. We talk about his personal or maybe his psychological order writing his work. So anyway, so remember, it also talks about desire, anxiety. Got it? So psychoanalysis is mental disorder are treated according to psychoanalysis. As I told you before I was live, I talked about a series called Freud in Netflix, and there we have like a couple of episodes there. We know that how he treated, according to him, that the patients who has mental disorder can be treated by hypnosis, not by the medicine. So he just what he did, he employed this method and treated so many patients who had mental disorder. So I hope you got it, and if you have time, you definitely go and watch that series on Netflix. So anyway, during the 1890s, Freud worked with who? You remember the name? Joseph Breuer. So these two people, what they did, they went into that hospital, that medical college, and what they did is that they treated them, those patients, under hypnosis, not by the medicine. So they both, Freud and Breuer, Breuer observed that when the source of patient's ideas and impulses were brought into unconsciousness during the hypnotic state, the patient showed improvement. So remember, as I told you now, like what words come in your mind when you think of psychoanalysis. So these concepts would be like unconscious, repression and sublimation, id ego and superego, neurosis, Carl Jung's archetypical criticism, infantile sexuality, and Oedipus complex by Freud, and Electra complex by Jung. And we will have the concept also include psychosexual stage of libido, oral, anal, phallic. This is all by Jung, so we have to know about it. So transference and projection, also defense mechanism, Freudian slip, dream work, displacement. Got it? And important key points are in psychoanalytic criticism. A theory is beginning with the Freud's interpretation of dream. It's quite important, not quite important, it's like most important work in psychoanalytic criticism. So if you really want to know, you can read about it. But anyway, Freud's the interpretation of dream, according to him, that through the dreams we can understand about the patient more. Okay, so psychoanalysis involves having the patient speak freely about his childhood experiences and dreams in a patient analytic setting to treat emotional and psychological order. So according to him, the dream plays an important role to treat those patients effectively. So the part of psyche that receives, stores irrational thoughts, fears and passion, and these three concepts and terms are quite important: id, ego and superego. Later we are going to talk about this too. So anyway, neurosis is what it is. It refers to the internal battle between the ego and the id. So ego is your natural desire, your unconscious desire that it wants to come, but you stop it. No, this is not right, we should not do it, right? So this is your ego. And superego is what? Your belief, your strong belief on a particular thing can be your superego. So the author unconscious mind was reflected in his work of literature. So according to him, when we interpret a literary work, any kind of literary work, we have to consider the unconscious or conscious behavior of the author who has written the work. Got it? So that is the simple fact about the psychoanalytic literary criticism. So psychoanalytic perspective views artists including like authors as neurotic. So in creating their art, authors escape many of the outward manifestation and effect of neurosis. Because sometimes there was one thing that somebody talked about, that the author sometimes write. Why they write? They must be frustrated about that they can't express themselves to the world. So what they do, they take that literary particular things, literary work of art, and they write about it. They might be talking about novels, they might be writing some short stories, and they put their own desire. So sometimes it's quite important for us to analyze the particular work in psychoanalytic perspective. I hope you got it right. So Sigmund Freud believed that an author's primary motivation for writing is to satisfy some secret desire, right? So that was his message, and that's when everything started about psychoanalysis. So Freud believed that an author's primary motivation was what? Writing is to satisfy his own some secret desire that he had held in his unconscious mind. Got it? So how he will express? He will write something, he will create a character, and he'll just show, and he'll just express that suppressed desire through that character in a particular work of art. Got it? Tell me if it is clear. Write clear in the chat box quickly, and then we'll just begin about quickly Jung archetypical criticism. Then we'll talk about Freud also. But First of all, you have to write if psychoanalytic literary criticism is clear for you. Write clear in the chat box quickly, and then we'll start our class. We'll go further. Great. Priya says it's clear. Anyway, so a what is a little bit more about it? A forbidden wish could have developed during the author. So according to Freud, as I told you, it is just simple. Why they write it? Why some of the authors write about? Write novels or poetry or any work of art, because they have some secret desire. No, the author infancy, when they had that desire in their subconscious mind that they want to express, but they couldn't express in front of people together. But what he did, he create a character, and he, through that character or protagonist or even evil or villain, anything, right, he expressed that desire through these particular character in a particular literary work of art. So that's why this literary criticism is quite psychoanalytic literary criticism is important, because through that we should psychoanalyze the particular work. Got it? So Freud declares that the literary work is the author's dream or fantasy. What is it? Which is your id, right? Got it. So the mind censor, the ego, is often unable to acknowledge the actual wish if it is too strong or forbidden. So what is your ego? So first of all, you have to understand, human brain or your brain is too much, right? So big. It's like you're just accessing that ego like tip of the iceberg, but below that there is so much, and which is your id. So whatever the desire you have in your unconscious mind, like some wild desire, okay, like I really want to push that guy from that place, okay, or I want to, from your desire is there, but why you don't do it? Because it is not right. It is your ego that stops you. Don't do that. Like in Priya's presentation, there was about ice cream, that it wants to, your heart or your unconscious mind, that you want to eat, but your ego is that no, if I would eat, I'll just put on weight, right? I should not do it. So that is. And superego is what? That some people have a strong belief, no, sugar is not good for health and I'm not gonna eat it. That is like your belief. Never. It's not about ice cream, but it's about anything, which has sugar. I don't want to eat it. It has a negative effect on health. That is your belief. That is your superego. Okay. So that is like simple. I open. Now I know, I hope you got the idea about the id ego and superego. Got it? So a psychoanalytic critic believes the story's true meaning can be revealed when the real uncensored desire is brought to the surface. Okay. And Carl Jung will first talk about archetypical criticism, and then we'll move to Sigmund Freud. Okay. So Carl Jung's archetypical criticism is what he talks about: conscious, and then there is personal conscious, then there is collective conscious, then at the end we have archetypes. So remember, conscious is what? That you are aware of, you are awakened, and you are in your right sense of mind, and in simple word, it's your ego, in simple word, if you can say. So the waking state is directly affected by the unconscious, and personal unconscious is what? This part of unconscious exists beneath the conscious label. So it's like your what? Id, right? It's like far, what is your secret desire and all, right? This is your unconscious, and contains the element of all daily private affairs we encounter. And what is collective? So collective, this is the repository of all humankind's cumulative knowledge, experiences, and images. And archetypical, so these are the pattern or images in our stories, dream, religion, and fantasy that reflect repeated human experience such as birth, death, rebirth, and motherhood. Like you are brought up with that from your childhood, from even from ancestors, and also these images, no, these archetypes are also important in what Carl Jung's archetypical criticism. So psychoanalytic criticism, what they ask the question to gain. So Priya or anyone who wants to teach or who wants to just give lecture on that, you have to ask, start your presentation or whatever you're teaching or anything with these questions, and it's quite very important. Then you will understand what it is. So सबसे पहले the first thing you should ask, or any psychoanalytic critic or whoever is related to that should ask, or whoever the teacher is, so what role do operations of repression play in structuring or informing the work? So what role do operation of repression play in a structuring or informing the work? So what are the simple purpose of these particular work to making that particular work? So suppose if Priya wants to write some topic that she is interested about, that so first thing that I, as a critic or a theorist, first will ask, why would she pick up that topic? Why would she structure this work? Right? So we'll begin with that. And then, second question, is there an audible dynamic at work? Or is there another family dynamic at play? So you'll ask, it is solely by her desire, or there is something like through family also, and what can be done? Explain the behavior. So that behavior, what can be done to explain this behavior, that kind of narrative that she has employed, and the images or character that she has created in this particular work. For instance, fear of death, or fascination with death, or sexuality as primary indicator of psychological identity, including love and romance, as well as sexual behavior, or the function of ego-id, superego. What is there, and how can we judge this? Through ego, id, and superego, right? So again, the fourth number question that psychoanalytic ask is can the work provide insight the psychological of its nature? So don't think I write about something something like weird. I'll just take one example of Lolita, right? Lolita by Nabokov. Everybody knows, right? So you are reading that particular work. So through that, there is a professor, right? And who had like so much like weird and so much desire for anyway. So that is you might go and read about it. I'll just only tell you that when you read this, you won't only think about the that professor there, but you will think about, okay, maybe if you're judging that through your that psychoanalysis, you'll just point out the author. Maybe author has that kind of desire or something. You will just go read about him, talk about him. I know the particular work has their own authenticity, but if you're judging a particular work through psychoanalytic criticism, you have to know about the author, or can the work, by reading that, and can the work, that particular work, insight into the psychological nature of its nature. Got it? So how might an interpretation of literary work reflect the psychological motivation of the reader? So does the piece contain prominent words with some hidden meanings, or some kind of weird metaphors, or analogy, or anything, or meaning that are different from what they appear to be? Is there something that some hidden messages there in particular a paragraph or particular dialogue? So these things, what they psychoanalytic critic, like filter out. So that is what psychoanalytic criticism and theory is. So does the piece contain prominent words that I told you just now? Is there a subconscious reason for the author's use of these problem words? So this is quite important. I hope it is clear. Tell me clear in the chat box quickly, and then we'll begin Sigmund Freud. Great. We are starting Freud right now. Simple. Some keyword. Freud is Austrian and the founder and the father of psychoanalysis. Got it? And Freud's theory of motivation, unconscious psychological forces such as his hidden motive and desires shape an individual's behavior. So Freud born on 6th May 1856, where Freiburg, Moravia. Got it? And he was his father was a merchant, and he's from Jewish family, moved to Leipzig and settled in Vienna, where Freud was educated. So upon beginning his study at the University of Vienna in 1873, Freud worked at the Vienna General Hospital. So there he employed the technique of hypnosis to treat mental disordered patients. So in collaboration with Joseph Breuer, he treated hysteria by hypnotizing the patient to recall painful experiences. So when a particular patient is hypnotized, they ask some weird question, and whatever is there, is there in their unconscious mind or in their head, these kind of question they ask, and through that they answer that these are his suppressed desire, that he is suffering from mental breakdown or mental disorder, right? So there should be some time for you to express all these things. And I'm saying all the author, but some author has this kind of thing. They want to express, but they couldn't, because the society will not accept. So what they do, they take a particular work or they write a novel, they express all these desire through the character. Got it? So Freud studied under the neurologist Jean Carcot in Paris in 1885. He practiced specialized nervous and brain disorder. He had 6 children with Martha Barnes. Okay. And Freud proposed concept of the unconscious in humans. His major work, The Interpretation of Dreams. So he says that dreams can tell the personality or their personality, their identity about the particular person through dreams. The dream is a kind of very important mechanism to treat patients and also particular person. So it was published when 1900. Simple, remember the date, quite important, 1900, in which Freud analyzed dreams as unconscious desire and experience. So Freud became a professor of neuropathology at the University of Vienna in 1902. And Carl Jung, he was a close associate of Freud's, was elected president of the International Psychoanalytic Association in 1910. And Jung later broke up with Freud and developed his own theory. That's why we have that electrocomplex, conscious, subconscious. Anyway, so after World War I, Freud began to spend more time applying his theory to history, art, literature, and anthropology. The ego we have, the id we have, the ego and the id, published in 1923, suggested a new model of the mind divided into 3 parts: id, ego, and superego. So Freud was diagnosed with jaw cancer and died on when 23rd September 1939. So now we are going to discuss his major work, which is the interpretation of dream, where we find Oedipus complex, and it was published in 1899. Okay, so Freud introduced his theory of unconscious concerning dream interpretation, and it is later developed as the theory of Oedipus complex. So remember that Oedipus complex was first introduced in the work The Interpretation of Dreams. Got it? And Freud revised the book 8 times and was influenced by Wilhelm Steckel. Freud wrote abridged version called On Dreams. An unconscious mind. Now we'll begin with what is unconscious mind. Pay more attention to it. That's gonna help you a lot to understand how you can analyze or psychoanalyze a particular work of art. So anyway, according to him, the mind contains thought, right? Not only according to him, but most of the people think, that they know that mind contains what? Thoughts. It has memories. It has emotions hidden from the conscious mind. Right? So these are there. The 3 areas are those: the dynamic unconscious, the plasticity in interpersonal drives, and mastery of experience through a reversal of voice. We'll understand more by the term Oedipus complex. Okay, so this concept was introduced where? Interpretation of Dream, 1899. Okay, so as we know, a boy with an Oedipus complex who has that complexity in their mind, if they are suffering, a boy with an Oedipus complex hates his father and desire to have sex with his mother during this universal phase of life. And everybody knows that Oedipus is a play by who? Write in the chat box quickly. Sophocles, right? Great. So Oedipus, whatever you can say, Oedipus is the correct pronunciation. So these wishes may be unconscious. He wouldn't know that these wishes is real, but it's not. He wouldn't realize it. He wouldn't know it. So some desires you might have had, I'm not talking about Oedipus, but any kind of desire you have, you would not know it. It will automatically come, instinctively. Then you will feel sometime. So these wishes may be unconscious. So Oedipus is the name that we know, mythological figure. And in 1913, Carl Jung introduced what? Electra complex as an equivalent complex among young girls. So in Oedipus, what happened? A boy hates his father and desires for his mother. And here girl hate her mother and desire her father, right? So this is so Oedipus complex can be viewed as a precursor of Freud's seduction theory. So later Freud he expanded this idea to suggest that both boys and girls are affected by the Oedipus complex with 2 different outcomes. First, boys experience castration anxiety, girls experience penis envy. So these 2 terms are very important, and these are the outcomes in the Oedipus complex. So, and this is all divided into libido. Libido is what? Libido is something like the sexual urges in his later writing with all constructive human activity. Actually, it is a psychic energy associated with sexual urges, and in his later writing with all the constructive human activities. So Freud considered psychiatric symptoms the result of misdirection or inadequate discharge of libido. So Carl Jung also used the term more expansively, encompassing all life possesses in all species. And later, this theory of motivation have substitute for libido such related terms as drive and tension. Now that now we are talking about personality. So human, a particular man or particular person has what they have 5 stages. Okay, remember that they have 5 stages. So we can just take one example of somebody, right? Somebody who just who just born, and it starts with the oral, and oral is birth to 1 year, erogenous zone, that is called mouth. You just have to remember the oral, birth to year, mouth, and then we have the anal, which is 1 to 3, and it is bowel bladder control, and the phallic. So oral, anal, phallic is 3 to 6 years, erogenous zone, genital, and the latency is 6 to puberty. Okay, and erogenous zone, sexual feelings are inactive at that time, and the genital stages that comes from puberty to until your death, and it is also erogenous zone and maturing sexual interest. So remember that the oral, the anal, and phallic, latency, and genital stages. So the expression of sexual energy, which is your libido. So whatever the expression is there about, expression of sexual energy, that is libido, which also these expression varies with each stage and through different body parts. Negative Oedipus complexes involves the desire for the same sex parent and the contempt for the opposite sex. Got it? So according to Freud, the successful outcome of the complex is identifying a child with a same sex parent, and it may lead to neurosis if it is unsuccessful. So critics have alleged that he is sexually attracted to children. This theory has been used to cover up child sexual abuses. Okay, and as we know that it has 5 stages, right? And this is the oral, anal, phallic, latency, and genital stage. You have to remember that. This might come in your exam as well. So the Oedipus complex characterizes psychosexual development during the phallic stage when children are between 3 and 6. It also occurs in libido and ego formation of manifest at an earlier age. So the psychopathology of everyday life, which was published in 19, not important for you, but you should remember the name of the work. The creative writers and daydreaming, which was published in 1907, and it is an informal talk. We'll just talk about id, ego, superego, priya just after this, and that is what I think your presentation is about, right? Write in the chat box. So creative writers and daydreaming. So whoever is joined just now, they can watch from the beginning. It's quite interesting topic, and of course you will learn a lot of things. But anyway, the psychopathology of everyday life, which was published in 1904, which is also another work by Freud. Another that here we are talking about creative writers and daydreaming, which is the work which was published in 1907, and it was an informal talk given in 1907 by Freud, and it was published in 1908. So it is based on the relationship between unconscious fantasy and creative art. So, Freud argues that the writers draw their material from what? Suggesting that children at play and adult daydreaming both provided related activities to those of the literary artist. Now we are talking about the ego and the id, which was published in 1923. Here, quite important, I hope we have the image to show that. Will be back in 1 minute. We need a picture for that. I'll find a picture and then
the common problem in preparing for NET is that aspirants unnecessarily waste their time on reading too widely about concepts in a scattered manner, without focus. So much time is spent reading this broad syllabus, but nothing gets properly done. You know one thing, students should first at least solve 100 questions a day, and then start reading. In that way, when you read, you will immediately know what kind of questions can be asked in NET. Spend great deal of time in explanations. Try now, it really works. Well, reading questions is one way to know the topic before you read text, summary or analysis. But do you know, there are plenty of ways to analyze the questions and form more questions out of it. In our mock test explanations, we use multidimensional aspects to analyze the questions. Our nerds try to extract more out of the questions and explain not only the right option but also other remaining options as well. Look how we do it. Suppose you are reading a question about a novel. Maybe the question is, who wrote this novel? You get a right option among other wrong ones. Well, that's not the only way a question can be answered. If you really want to clear the exam, you have to adapt to multidimensional understanding. You have to understand all aspects of the question and form more questions out of it. What form and style was the novel written in? Who inspired the novel and the novelist? When, where and who published it?
So we have the
what other
picture
works
here.
are inspired by this novel?
I'm going to
Background
show
and
this
context of the novel. The correct order of the ideas in the novel.
See picture here, right? And it shows everything. So this is your conscious mind that you are awakened and you see only this, and this is your unconscious. So much is there, right? And this is your preconscious. Remember that it in that part of the place we have ego and unconscious, which is dominated by id, superego, and of course we have ego here, id here, superego. Okay, so this image I'll explain through the text. So first we are talking about, so wait a minute because we need highlighter. Sorry. Okay, now we have the highlighter. We'll interact more with it. So the ego and the id, which was published in 1923, where Freud discussed this model in his 1920 essay Beyond the Pleasure Principle. So that they might ask, and then later it was published as the ego and the id, which was 1923. So according to Freud, the mind consists three things, right? Id, ego, superego. And here you see, id is where? Here. That is your true, and it is dominated like most of your brain, your mind. So this is id here. And what is it? It is your true identity. The id is the part of psyche that is completely unconscious, that we are not conscious about. So remember, you have to remember that id is what? Completely unconscious. Remember that id, completely unconscious, impulsive and childlike, and functions on the pleasure principle. Okay, so it function where? On the pleasure principle. And the id knows no judgment. So it doesn't have any a part of your ego or your belief or anything. It is like no judgment. It doesn't judge. Judgment of value, no good and evil, no morality. So id has no good and evil and no morality, no judgment. Got it? And it seeks immediate pleasure and gratification. It wants immediate pleasure and gratification, and it wants to enjoy. It doesn't judge. It has no judgment of values, like there is no good, there is no evil, there is no morality. It is just what? Immediate pleasure and gratification. And sometimes you have to express your id sometime, like if you want to eat ice cream, you just go and have, right? But anyway, a person's id is the instinctual component of the personality that they are born with, right? So it is what? The instinctual component of the personality that they are born with. So you must have imagined, no? Because as people, grow older, they have their belief, and they have their super ego, they have their set of rules that they follow. But when you're a child, you do stupid things, like you poke somebody, or you just throw something, or do this and that. So these, and you do whatever you want. You don't have when you child, the child doesn't have any things to say it is wrong or it is right, or it has some morality, I should not do it in the beginning, right? He's kind of free. So it is mostly expressed at that age of time. But as we become older, what happened? We had our ego, we create our super ego excuse me, and we have a set of rules, we have our beliefs and all things, right? So the id is the part of psyche that is completely unconscious, impulsive and childlike, and function on the pleasure principle. So it has no judgment, knows no judgment of value, no good, evil, no morality. It seeks immediate pleasure and gratification. A person id is the instinctual component of personality that they are born with. So body needs and wants are derived from it, as well as emotional impulses and desire, including aggression and what? Libido, a sexual expression, and libido, sex drive. So the id acts as the psychic force oriented to the immediate gratification of impulses and desire, defines by the avoidance of pain. So Freud said that the id is unconscious. So that is the main message of id. Got it? Ego. And on the other hand, ego has what? Ego acts according to the reality principle. So what is real? It can be a little bit shown in your preconscious, right? It is there. You know it, right? It acts according to reality. What is the reality? It's not fiction or imagination, right? It is reality. Sorry. So the ego acts according to the reality principle. So rather than causing grief, it strives to satisfy the Id's drive in the realistic manner that will benefit the long term. So ego is something. If your id has expressed something that can be expressed, okay, it is not morally wrong, or it is not, we could do it. So through that, rather than causing a grief, it sometimes satisfy the it's what drive in a realistic way. If it is possible, it is in realistic manner, it can be done so manner that will benefit the long term. So Freud considered that the ego attempts to mediate between id and reality. Okay, so if it is completely weird things that ego won't, or your conscious mind would not accept it, right? So to illustrate this point, one could refrain from grabbing other people's belonging. Okay, sometime like a thief, you can just say, or just a simple person who has desire, or he just wants that particular belongings of a particular person, right? Instead of purchasing them. So so that will be your id, right? Like grabbing that, but instead of purchasing that. But what will happen? Your ego will say that is not wrong, we can buy and satisfy that thing also, right? So ego will what make the right judgment at that time, what is right, what is wrong. Got it? Sorry, my microphone fell. Okay, can you hear me? I guess it works. Great. So 4 functional groups comprises the ego. Defensive, sometime it is defensive, sometime it is perceptual, and intellectual, cognitive, and executive. Got it? And conscious awareness reside in the ego, although only some of the operation of the ego are conscious. So this is our ego, only that part. Now we have the superego. Superego is what? The superego results from internalizing cultural rules, primarily taught by parents through guidance and influence, right? So you learn throughout your age, from your childhood to your you learn from your parents or from your culture or even from your law. Like if you want to cross that particular boundary, if you cross, there will be, that will be your desire. Okay, I would like to jump to that wall and go there and see what is there. That is your id, your unconscious mind's what wants to explore. It is curiosity. But then your ego says what? No, I can't go, I can't jump out of the wall because it's wrong. What if I get caught? Let's see if it is possible. Can I go from the gate? Can I ask, right, permission and go inside and see, right? And then there is another superego. Going there will put you in a jail or put you in there. Okay, so this is the structure part of the personality, mainly unconscious but not entirely, that consists of the individual ego, ideals, spiritual goals, psychic agency known as the conscious. So it critiques and refuses that there drives, fantasies, feelings and action. So what is superego? Can be thought of as a type of conscious that punishes misbehavior with feeling of guilt. When you have superego, if you do your id thing and like you feel guilt, like ice cream, like Priya has given an example of ice cream that it wants to eat, but what if you eat, you'll put weight. And then there is a superego that it has sugar, I should not eat, that is a belief. But even if you did it, you will feel guilt. That superego kills you. Make you feel guilty, and can be thought as a type of conscious that punishes misbehavior with feeling of guilt. For example, having extramarital affairs, right? And the superego works in contradiction to the id, opposite. And the superego strives to act socially appropriately, whereas the id wants to instant self-gratification. So the superego controls our senses of right and wrong and guilt. The program enables us to fit into society by getting us to act in socially acceptable manner. I hope it is clear now, Priya. Tell that you will not have any problem explaining this in your class or wherever you are giving the presentation. I hope it's clear now. You can just go and do best there, and of course let me know how did you perform. It's tomorrow, right? Okay, anyway, Carl Jung, 1875-1961. Subject of study that we'll talk later tomorrow, and we'll try to finish. Anyway, we are closing our. It's already 1 hour. The rest we'll study, and today I will try to post couple of mock test this evening. Okay, so be there and attend that. Okay then, bye bye, have a great day.